Hi everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make my best butter cake. When I say best butter cake, I don't mean world's best butter cake. But this is my best butter cake recipe because I've been experimenting with this butter cake for months in order to get the perfect butter cake. At least to me it's perfect. A perfect butter cake to me, right, first of all, has got to be the right shape. I like my butter cake to be a nice square so that I can cut them into rectangular sizes. I think one of the most important thing about butter cake is that crust. You know, that brown crust. You can imagine, right? Every slice will have a nice crust. When you bite into it, you'll get a crust as well as the inside. So the best butter cake for me, right, it's got to be soft, it's got to be tender, and at the same time have a nice buttery aroma. To get that from just the basic ingredients of butter, sugar, eggs, flour is very difficult. So please, when you follow this recipe, just make sure that you don't change anything. Okay, good butter cake starts with good butter. As you can see, I just took the butter out from the fridge. You know, a lot of recipes say that you have to start with butter at room temperature, but you know Singapore is very warm. The best temperature for the butter to be is at 15 degrees, where it's just soft enough for you to put your finger in and indent it. And then I also took my eggs out from the fridge just because I want cold eggs, because cold eggs are easier to separate than eggs that are room temperature. Now I'm using KitchenAid. This is this year's color, this beetroot, and it comes with two bowls because we're going to whip the egg whites with this one, cream the butter with this one. This is a silicone beater. With this beater, right, the silicone just scrapes the side of the bowl so you don't have to keep scraping down on the butter, which is one thing I hate to do. So what I'm going to do is just to cut them into slices. I must have baked about 30 or 40 of these butter cakes, especially my mother-in-law loves butter cake. So this recipe is really for her. The butter goes in there. If you leave it out too long and it's too soft, you really cannot use it. You got to put it back into the fridge. Let's talk about the pan. Now I've done many experimentation because I wanted a recipe that uses one block of butter, which is 250 grams. And I find that the 18 centimeter pan like this or 7-inch square pan is the best shape. It's got to be about 2.5-inch tall. Now the pan that you use is very important. If you want a cake that is not dome, it's nice and flat, that you can cut into 16 slices and sell each slice for $3.50 at a cafe, then it matters. And what I'm going to do first is to oil the inside of the pan. This is the part that I always remember my mom doing. Okay, so now you got butter all over the inside of the pan. We're going to now put in the flour to coat the inside of the pan with the flour. Now you might be wondering, okay, since this is a non-stick pan, how come you're still coating the inside with flour? Well, because I was frustrated with the fact that my cake always had that funny lip at the side. And I posted the question online and some of our readers, some of our bakers actually suggested that I flour the pan. So once I start flouring the pan, then I found that, hey, it got rid of the edge. This one you may not have, not everybody has baking strips, but the baking strip acts as an insulator. What we need to do with these strips is to wet it. Okay, so after you wet the baking strips, you just put it around the pan. When you bake a cake, the sides become hot first, right? And so the sides start cooking, and once they cook, they set. Then the middle cooks a bit later, and then it rises a lot more than the sides. That's why you get a dome cake. So if you want a nice cake like mine, you might have to invest in some baking strips. Or you can make your own. You can use some aluminum foil and just put some wet baking paper in it. This is now ready for the batter to go in. I'm using 60-gram eggs. Now this is very important. Specifically, you need egg yolk about 70 grams, so you get it from 60-gram eggs. Too much eggs, the texture will change. You got too little eggs, the texture also different. Just 10 or 20 grams makes a difference, even with the flour. And I've experimented with it, so please just follow the recipe. You always need to separate your eggs in separate bowls, right? Because if you've got a little bit of yolk in the white, it won't whip. I'm just going to go on and crack all the eggs. Can't whip eggs when they're cold, although with a powerful beater like mine, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. I use the beater to start just beating up the butter. So as you beat up the butter, the temperature will increase. So you can see the butter mustn't separate. Now this is half of the sugar I'm going to use. The other half I'm going to use to whip up the egg whites. So I'm just going to put the sugar in. Start with a slow speed just to get the sugar incorporated into the butter. And then you set your timer for 4 minutes. Once the sugar is already incorporated, go on a higher speed. The main thing is you don't want to under-cream it. If you under-cream it, you won't get a nice airy texture. And if you over-cream it, then also the texture is going to be very dry. Always try to err on the side of over-creaming, because if you under-cream, it's really not going to rise and it's not going to be very nice. What you're looking for is for the color of the butter to turn into a pale white color, and then you know you're ready. So last time with the normal flat beater, right, you always have to use your spatula to scrape down. With this new silicone beater, you don't actually need to do that because it actually scrapes it off the side for you. So that's a very useful accessory to have. Okay, so 4 minutes is up. As you can see, the butter and sugar mixture is now nice and pale white, right? So this is what you want. Okay, this is the secret sour cream. I find that the sour cream helps to tenderize the cake, and that little bit of sourness, although you can't taste it, right, will make the cake taste better. If you don't use sour cream, some people use yogurt. If you don't use yogurt, then plain milk, because most recipes will have milk. Anything that will help to just make it a little bit more moist, yeah? Okay, so you beat in the sour cream, and then now is where you add your egg yolk. So you add your egg yolks one at a time, and allow the beater to just mix the egg yolk. Egg yolks are mainly fat, as well as they have a chemical inside called lecithin, and that acts as an emulsifier. Okay, so you basically beat until the egg is all nicely mixed in. So now it's time to add in some flavoring. So first of all, I'm going to use some salt. I always add a little bit of salt into every cake that I make, because the salt helps to bring out the sweetness, believe it or not. So this is entirely optional, but this is one of the secrets that I picked up. I just add about a teaspoon of butter oil into the mix. And immediately, you know, when you open your cake later on, you can actually smell that butter. It just brings it up, you know. It's just an additional something that will give it that oomph, you know. They'll give it that I need to have the next piece kind of feel. Okay, and this is vanilla. So the next thing we're gonna do is to kind of whip up the egg whites. With the egg whites, you want to make sure that there's no oil, right? So my hands are a little bit buttery, so I make sure that I don't touch any of these parts. Yeah. This is caster sugar. Don't add the sugar in right at the beginning. Okay, it's not good. You need to add the sugar in when it becomes like a little bit shiny and all the big bubbles have disappeared. That's when you start adding your sugar in. So as you can see, with this machine, it's so convenient because you got two bowls. I can have that bowl there. I don't have to wash it while I do my egg whites, so it's so convenient. So I think that should be good enough. Okay, so that, my friends, is quite stiff. You can see that. Turn it around. Okay, it won't come off. Okay, so that's beautiful. This is the part where I add in the flour. I'm using self-raising flour. You can use cake flour. If you use cake flour, just add in 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder. Right? I'm just going to add in all at one time. Just mix everything together at slow speed. Okay, so all you want to do is to incorporate all the flour into the egg and butter mixture. There's no water, right? It's all egg yolk and butter and sugar, because it's important that we don't overmix our flour. Once water hits the flour, gluten starts to form, and that's when all the gluten formation will make your cake more stronger. Egg white is 90% water. So once the water goes in and mixes with the flour, that's when the gluten will start to form. So by whipping it to stiff peaks, the sugar in the egg white is already in the structure, right? So it protects the water from contacting the gluten as well in the flour. Now we're going to add in 1/3 of the egg white. Then the rest of the egg white can go in. Okay, we basically mix until the egg white is all disappeared and it's ready. You don't want to overdo it, and please, for heaven's sakes, don't put it on high speed. Okay, all the rest we are going to use the spatula to mix. So whatever leftover whites that you can see, just fold it into the batter. You don't have to be really that careful as long as the egg white is mixed in. Okay, it's a little bit rough like that. It's not watery, and yet if you do that, it should be able to just drop. Okay, so that's the right texture. Just throw this all to your baking tin. Okay, in the end, finger is still the best. The batter is still quite cold. Okay, and it's all fluffy. Okay, I find that the easiest way to flatten it is to use a chopstick. Just do that. Smoothen the top. So set your oven at 160, it's already preheated. 160, 50 minutes. So while the cake is baking, let's talk about KitchenAid's color of the year. This year's color is beetroot. Right. It's got a nice satin finish. At first I thought, beetroot, what kind of color? A little bit, but when the machine actually came, we actually found it quite pleasing. It's got a nice finish. Now, aside from the color, this particular set comes with some new improvement. This new guard, right, has these little clips, and it clips really nicely and securely to the sides of the bowl, which I really like. It also comes with this new pastry beater. This is good for short crust pastry when you're mixing your butter and flour. Alright, and then of course you got the whip. This one is from previous model. And then you got your dough hook. And you also have your flat beater with the silicone edge, which I showed you, and a scraper. The best thing is, and this is the great thing that I love about this set, is that small bowl and the big bowl. So you have two bowls you can work with. Great for my, even for my banana cake and any cakes that you need to actually mix two batches of batter and then mix them together. So if you're looking for a kitchen mixer, do check out KitchenAid's latest machine. Okay, so after 50 minutes, our cake is ready. So just leave it there for a few minutes for it to cool down a little bit, and then we'll overturn it onto the cooling rack. Leave it to cool for at least, I would say, about an hour, so that it gets completely cool. Now, if you overturn it too quickly, sometimes, if you don't give it enough time to cool, you might get the bottom layer might be a bit dense. So as you can see, I specially designed it so that each slice is like that. Okay, I get to bite the crust and a bit of cake. Like that. A good butter cake must be buttery, nice smell, very tender, nice and moist. And when you put it into your mouth, right, and your tongue just presses on it, everything just disintegrates and melts like this. So, as my mother-in-law says, there's nothing better than a good piece of butter cake. So until next time, happy baking and happy eating. The cake has a bit of time to cool down, just a few minutes, and now I'm going to put it on the cooling rack. This is the part of the recipe that I hate most. Why? Because yolks sometimes break. So while the bake is caking,